Hi, I'm Greg Schaffer. Welcome to the Virtual CISO Moment. Mariia Erokhina joins us today. She is a CISO level security leader known for designing security, risk, and governance operating models that scale with the business. Mariia has led and built global information security functions across fintech and highly regulated environments, delivering programs aligned with ISO 27001, SOC 2, PCI DSS, GDPR, and DORA. Her work focuses less on individual controls and more on creating durable operating structures where accountability is clear, decisions are executable, and security, engineering, and business objectives reinforce each other. Mariia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for the invitation. I'm pleased to join you today.
And thank you for the restart. I don't mind saying I'm always very open on this podcast. We had gone probably about 4 or 5 minutes, and then we had internet connection degradation, and then the recording stopped. And so for us, we're going to do like a Groundhog's Day moment here and just kind of like redo stuff again. So, Maria, would love to hear about your history, how you got involved with cybersecurity, and then just bring us all the way up to where you're at today.
Yeah, thank you. So actually, I started in cybersecurity when I was 16. I picked this field when I was just in school because actually I had to choose the uni and to choose the future profession. It's hard to pick correct when you are so young. At the same time, I had really good professionals around me to look at and to pick this profession. So actually, before 16, I tried myself in some development in IT administration, and so on. But actually, I understood that my profile belongs to cybersecurity. It just came to me. So after that, I studied the uni. It was 5 years over there, a lot of things. And over there, I learned that cybersecurity is somewhere in between of some fields. So it includes legal compliance, all this stuff. Also, a technology deep dive as well. And this grew me up significantly. After that, so I was working in a few banks and in a grown-up corporation, in small ones, and it built me as a professional who really wants to improve the business and improve operations through security. So security is just a part of a business from my perspective. Greg, are you with us?
Oh, I was waiting for you to continue.
Oh, yeah. So actually, this is just a short intro for my field. Yeah, this is it.
Okay, and the reason why maybe I had that deer in the headlight look is like, I'm still troubleshooting, and it I have been troubleshooting as soon as you started talking. As soon as I went to a single screen, had the same issue where it's like I started to lose what you were saying. And so here I am troubleshooting, and this is going to sound weird. And I know you can appreciate it as a tech professional. I think, I don't know why this is the case, but what solved it apparently is that I went back to the two screens because I had you on the solo screen. And as soon as I did that, everything started to degrade. And so when you stopped talking, you were so still. It's like I thought, oh gosh, I lost the internet connection again. And then you said, Greg, are you with us?
Fantastic. At least it proves that we are live.
Absolutely. And unafraid to talk about mistakes. But this is really weird because again, like I said on my side, if I went to a single screen with just you right now, it would die. But here, everything, I don't know how you see me, but everything is flowing very well. And we're going to talk about stress a little bit later in the podcast, but I have to say these sorts of things that come up, and it comes up in our field just in general, but um, anything that comes up that's a surprise can be very, very stressful. And I'm going to take that as a segue into our first question. I really wanted to talk about. We were talking about in the intro how you really talk about focusing on creating durable operating structures and instead of individual controls. And in our little example here of having an issue like suddenly come in surprise, I can see that that has a tie into security, because a lot of times if we get too far into the weeds with individual controls, we miss the actual big picture of what's happening. And so here, being so far into the weeds as far as individual controls and what's working, what isn't, with regards to this, with regards to the ignoring the big picture of trying to get the podcast going. So I'd like to find out. I'm trying to figure out what a healthy podcast platform looks like, but from a security program in general, what does a healthy information security operating model actually look like in practice?
So from my perspective, security do not exist in vacuum. This is the core point, that security is part of the quality of the business and the business processes. And
Hmm.
that is the main key thing that I used to use in my work. So integration of the security into business processes is the core thing that works. Instead of just checklists, instead of just control some very small separate pieces, it is required to see the full picture. And it means that I need to focus on how everything operates, not how something is listed. And I clearly understand that there is no one size fits all processes. I
Hmm.
worked in identity and access management implementation, and my customers, they used to say that we have some very standard process like onboarding, offboarding, change of the role, and so on. But I said, oh, it is so different between the organizations, no similar processes. And actually, this is the core thing, that we need to tailor security to ensure that this works perfectly for the exact company, not for everyone.
We get instances where we have auditors come, or with financial institutions, examiners as well too. One of the things that I've heard constantly, and it's probably one of the statements that really bother me, is when a financial institution might say something like, well, we're good enough because the auditors said we're good enough with what we're doing. And that gets almost to like this checkbox, checklist compliance thing, looking at individual controls. Your controls are in place, but they're not looking at the overall big picture, as you would say, the operating model of the security program in general. They're trying to take a one size fits all approach to their audits and to their exams. So there's really a difference between what we would term like audit ready and security ready. What are some of these differences? And probably more importantly, why is this important?
So, a very interesting question, and I really like it. So, from my perspective, you are fully right that audit checks existence of the control, but they do not check the quality of these controls, because
Hmm.
one of this in the same control we can implement in so many ways. And actually, this is the thing that is missing. So the standardization that we use, so standards, frameworks, and so on, this is a good thing because it really helpful. But at the same time, it depends on the organization and what they focus on. If the core goal of the organization is to pass the audit gracefully, this is one task. And if you
Hmm.
want to ensure real security, this is the other task. And actually, I understand that if you build the real security, you most probably would pass the audit successfully. So, of
Hmm.
course, you need to follow some rules, but it is easier than to follow the approach that, yes, we go to the audit and we need to pass it gracefully. And this is the only point that we want. So, when organizations try to achieve certification and equal this to real security. So for me, it is a big question on, do you really understand what exactly are you doing? Because it feels like a fake for me, for as a professional, of course. And I clearly have an example from my practice that shows the approach of paper security and real security. So just like, one day I was on a meetup And one manager impressed a lot of people, to be honest, with the explanation of how mature is the process that was implemented in his organization. It was vulnerability management. It
Hmm.
was nice schemas. It was a good explanation of how it works, what tooling is used, automation everywhere, lack of noise because of the reduction of this noise with the specific tools and orchestration. Tasks are in Jira, everything is all good and just works. I was impressed and so on. And it happened that in 1 year, I became a manager in this exact organization. And immediately I recognized the page in the Confluence with the description of this process because, and I said, oh, so we have some mature process over here. Okay, guys, team, please explain me what's going on. And this team showed me the process. Yes, tools were in place, documentation was nice, at the same time, tasks were in Jira, but no prioritization, no remediation. Does it worth it? Of course not. From my perspective, it is waste of time and waste of resources. So in this
Security theater,
perspective,
right? That's like security theater.
yeah, exactly. So actually, it was a lack of authority of ex-manager to implement this stuff properly. And I would not say that it is blame for someone, but it's really a theater. And I don't really appreciate this. So for me, even if the process is not perfect, if it's not that much mature, but we need to achieve the goal, and the goal is always real security. But to address the audits, to address some controls, sometimes we really need to document it in a proper way on how it is expected. And we sometimes just accept these rules. But it depends on the goal of the organization, as I said.
Well, and therein lies one of the big challenges. What is the ultimate goal of the organization? Because as you touched on before, it can be between passing audit and real security. And I completely agree with you. It's like if you have a good solid security program in place, you're going to right out the door meet 80, 90% easily of any one of those framework requirements out there. And the rest is just more aligning with probably different acronyms and all of that. But the problem comes into play. We know that as security professionals, but when you have executives that really just care just about the audit part, I think that part of it comes down to them understanding that they need to have ownership at the executive level with regards to anything security. It's almost as if they have the, I'm not saying everybody, but sometimes you run across the attitude of like they just want security to go away. How do you break through this? How do you make them? Maybe that's not the right word, the right way to say it. How do you convince them that taking ownership of security, not as a audit audit pass end goal, but rather as a getting to a real security program, is the correct business decision to make?
So actually, this is one of the hardest pieces in CISO work because actually what I notified is that the approach is really differ because of the size of the organization and the maturity of the organization.
Mhm.
For the corporations that implemented security and invested in security for years, for decades even, it is totally normal for executives to pass through the training, through some sessions with the security professionals to explore how exactly it influence the business. And they understand that they are responsible for security. They pay for security for the professionals, but at the same time, it's them who identify the goals, who identify the priorities, and so on. At the same time, for mid-sized organizations, the approach is totally different most of times. Executives do not want to be bothered with some trainings, including just regular awareness sessions. And implementing even this sometimes is one of the things that is a big win for CISO in this organization. And let's look at the structure of the organization. For me, org structure means a lot. It tells you a lot about the organization. For
Mhm.
corporations, CISO is a board member. It is the person who really acts on the C level. But For mid-size organization, CISO can be a solo specialist, just a specialist, or it can be an operational lead who reports to CTO, CIO, COO, or some other C-level executive. And it differ a lot. And the main point is that I understand that in such organizations, CISO mostly works on the operational level. And what I recognized is that mostly people under C level, so C-1 mostly,
Mhm.
start to have a high demand for security. On the one hand, it is strange because we used to say that for executives, for C level, it is their skin in the game, right? Because it is their reputational impact, it is their approach. But later, we can see that directors, a head of functions, and so on, they really want security. They have demand for some specific questions that they face in their operational life. And that's why they start to work with security function.
Well, certainly the head of security, the CISO, or CISO or CISO or however we want to pronounce it. Um, I,
Yeah.
I, it's it. I heard once it's this saying, and I think it speaks so much. It's like if you don't report to the board or the C-suite, like the CEO, you're a chief of nothing. The C means nothing there. To your point, you were saying it becomes more of an operational role. And I wonder, there's a lot of challenges that we have when we're talking about scaling organizations, particularly like startups that then start blowing up. And they may have had one person in charge of security early on that was more operational and everything. But I would think that there's probably some challenges from scaling up and trying to reach to that level where the security officer becomes more of a strategic partner in the executive to just the operational role that they had before.
So from my perspective, that's what I described actually in my post in LinkedIn. It was about the whom exactly we call CISO.
Hmm.
So over there, I mentioned that through my career, I saw three types of CISO. Solo CISO is the person who is a solo specialist, but it is required to have a CISO in the organization because of some regulations, stuff, and so on. And this
Auditors,
person,
right? The auditors need
exactly,
it.
yeah, and the person just get a title of CISO, so not a specialist, but this is a solo person who proceed to work on everything. And of course, it's typically more like for compliance reasons and some programs that this person capable to drive. And it differ from the specialist specification. So this can be a person who works mostly for vulnerability management and application security. It can be more like an admin for infrastructure security. It can be purely compliance person who drive awareness sessions for everyone and so on. So it differs so much, but this is a solo specialist. The other type of CISO that I see is just head of IT security, head of cybersecurity, or someone who really drive all these operational stuff related to cybersecurity. And these people are mostly hands-on and people who organize all these processes, all these structures, and so on, and sometimes report to the board. So most of times this is person C-1, -2 level, and actually most of times it is an engineer or a person who is a professional manager for cybersecurity. And these strategic partners for CISO, they are rare. So actually, according to all the reports that we see globally, uh, how many CISOs are in the board? Mostly for corporations, for the
Yeah.
mature organizations. Very few startups include CISO over there. They just do not have enough staff for this, and they do not have a demand. So that's the core point that I see overall, and that's why I speak mostly about the influence on the operational level, because it is much more applicable for the market and for most CISOs.
Well, if you were to advise someone who was wanting to be eventually in their career a CISO, and let's just say that of the three, let's just say we're talking about one that actually is at the proper level. So the proper strategic level in the organization, the proper executive level, they have board reporting and all of that. CISOs come from various fields, but I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I would guess that a majority come from technical background somewhere in IT. It seems like that you start somewhere. That just seems to be the natural progression. There are some that come up through finance and all that, but let's just focus on those that came up for the technical side, through the IT side. What advice would you give someone that wants to aspire to that level? Because I think from what you were saying before, what I got is that the truly effective CISO is one that operates at the highest level. And while organizations may not all do that, particularly smaller ones, I think that that's something where a lot of people are trying to strive for, but they don't necessarily know what it is that they're missing, what they might need to incorporate into their skill set. Any points of advice?
I would say that it would be good for everyone in cybersecurity to work on the soft skills, on the communication, because actually security people are supposed to be really good communicators, because you need to ensure that controls are set, that people follow the rules. You need to convince people. And speaking about communication with executives, most of them do not really understand the technical language. So you
Mm-hmm.
need to work with as simple concept as possible. You need to explain it not just through how it is called in the textbooks, that value for business. So simplify things as much as possible, like for children. So I
Some of them
don't
are children, but
see. Yeah, so actually, one of the CEOs with whom I work, he really asked to explain him everything like for 5-year child. And actually, I'm really grateful that I had this request, because this brought me to learn how to express everything metaphorically. So, to provide some examples from the real life to ensure that people really understand what does all these technical measures mean.
yeah, and that when you said that, that was exactly what I was thinking and just writing down in my notes here. That if you can explain it on like to a child what it is you're doing at a very high level, if that's great. But if you can't explain it, I mean, it isn't as if your executive in that case wasn't saying that they had the capabilities of a child. I think part of it was measuring, if you can't explain it to me that simple, in that simple terms, then maybe you don't understand it completely and how it affects the business.
Yeah, I totally agree. So actually, that is also the point on how exactly I hire engineers, because the good engineer can explain to the person who is not that much in the technical field, for some compliance, for some legal people, what exactly this exact system is doing. So in this case, this engineer, I would doubt. So do he or she understand really what's going on? So in this case, yes, if we speak about some metrics or some controls that you need to explain, it's really good to explain it in simple terms, because sometimes we are too much in the terms, in the very sophisticated words, and we are not really understand the nature of these things. I really appreciate the specialists who perform a deep dive of what some specific term means, because if it is easy to explain with the example or in simple words, it means something. If not, this is just the term.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's the tendency to hide behind the complexities. Maybe there's some sort of a measure of insecurity, and and that's one other thing that, as you were talking, that I wanted to mention as well too. That what came to my mind, and also partially because of how we had issues at the beginning of recording the podcast, it's okay to be humble, and it's okay to have errors. You're going to have errors. You're going to make mistakes as you go along. Don't let that consume you. When you're talking to your supervisor or you're talking to the board, you're talking to another person, and guess what? That person makes mistakes too. So just talk to them as a person. Don't feel like that you're like having to perform or something. Am I am I making sense?
Yes, I believe that it's true that, mm, you know, many times I saw in my career that security people were treated also as a threat for just
Mm,
people who felt insecure. So employees from other functions do not feel okay when security people come to them and raise some questions, because they immediately have this friction, tension, and all this stuff that they do not really want to have. So that's why in my teams, I try to build a really friendly function, because even in case of the incident, we would not punish anyone. So just like people make mistakes, we are here to fix the problems. And after that, it would be someone to decide on the consequences and so on. So security just come, do their job, and so on. And just the same as you say about the executives, they are also humans. They also can make mistakes and so on. And actually, patience with which we can come to these people to explain some things simplifically and so on, this is the best approach that we can take.
well, we just had another little internet glitch there, but I think I caught the last part of that. It hasn't totally let up yet, but I didn't mention this at the beginning of the podcast. I did when we first started recording, but you're actually in Cyprus, and I'm over in the United States and just south of Nashville, Tennessee. So I think it's just amazing that we're able to do this in any case. But getting back to the feeling of security and understanding that everybody's human, we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves. I mean, we do want to get things right. Most people in security, they're in it because they have a passion. They want to solve a real problem. They want to try to make the world a little bit better. And we do tend sometimes to put too much pressure on ourselves. So one way to kind of ease that pressure is to be humble and to understand that it's okay. You can make mistakes and all that, but we also need to get away from it sometimes. And when I use the word decompress from it, what's one of the things that you do to healthfully decompress from the stress of everything cyber?
I would say that first of all, I just accept that I'm also a human and that I also can make mistakes. And to understand this, it took me some time. Of course, it's not about perfection and so on. I just try to rely on my team, on my people, and to understand that together we can fix almost everything. And this is
Hmm.
point number one. The other one is just like some uh, distress function, I would say. So I walk a lot. So just to have some movement
Yes.
as a person, I reduce the stress. So actually, all these happen all the time, and walking is good thing, good practice for this. Yeah.
Yeah, anything with movement, I think, and getting out and getting fresh air. As I'm looking out the window and it's still bright and sunny out here, although cold still. Um, I think I might go out and take a walk after this just because of the stress of the issues at the beginning of the podcast. But so, what kind of future plans that you have that you want to talk about? What's coming down the road for you, or career goals, or anything?
So actually, I don't know. So I know this popular question from, I believe it was Google who said it. How and where you see yourself in 5 years? I have no
Mm.
idea, because the world rapidly changes. And yeah, I want 1 sec. I'm sorry. That also proved that we are real person, not an
There you
avatar.
go.
Yeah, with AI, you never know. And actually, so actually, yeah. And the thing is that um, I think about some ideas that sometimes security is used to be a changer for the business. So in this case, I think more about the broadcasting of this function. So it should be either narrowed, like some companies do. So they set up a set of chief information security officers for some specific function because it is too big. So like Microsoft, I believe, do, and so on. Or it should be something with more influence on the operations. Because to build the processes, to build the controls, and to implement these controls, you need to build the process itself first. For example, if you need to perform the security due diligence for your supplier, you need some procurement process or third-party management process. If this process do not exist, so actually you really build it first, and after that you implement the control over there. So actually, I'm really good in building the processes, and I understand that actually it can be some role related to this stuff.
Awesome. Well, Mariia, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom and for your patience as we navigated through some of the issues. But to your point, I think my big takeaway from all of this, outside of, yes, we talked about operational versus looking just at the controls themselves, but the idea that we're all human, and maybe if we all remember that as we go about our days, maybe things will be a little bit stressful and better for everybody as we go about. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Greg, for invitation. Maybe we can chat someday about some other topic as well.
Yes, I would love to, and
I
maybe
can
we would
speak
have
about
better
security
connectivity.
all the time. Yeah, sure, sure.
Well, we'll do that. I'll definitely have you back on. Appreciate the conversation, and everybody, stay secure.